The first of our theories is substance dualism. Substance dualism is a rather old theory. We can trace substance dualism back to Plato in ancient Greece. We could probably even trace it back further than that. Substance dualism, just as the name might incline one to think, is the theory that there are two kinds of substances that exist in the world. There are non-physical substances and physical substances. Okay? So there are two kinds of substances that exist. Now, we're very accustomed to physical substances. Physical substances have location in space. They take up space. They can be tested for. Tables, trees, chairs, computers are made up of physical substance. Even oxygen is a physical substance. Even though it's a gas, it's still physical substance. Likewise, the body is a physical substance. Yes, there's a reason I didn't become an artist. Bear with me. So the body is a physical substance, but according to substance dualism, there's something else. There is a non-physical substance, and that's the mind. Now, the non-physical substance isn't extended in space. It doesn't have location. It can't be tested for scientifically. Okay? So while I've drawn, in this little dotted line, this notion of a non-physical substance, the non-physical substance itself won't actually have a circular-like shape. It won't be located just to the right of the head because it doesn't have any of those things. I just had to draw something so y'all could, think about it. It's a little bit like, think about the cartoon strips and the thought bubbles, over the cartoon characters in the cartoon strips, the comic strips. So substance dualism says there are physical states, the body, being dehydrated. Okay, this is a physical state, being dehydrated. Endorphins, I gotta remember how to spell endorphins. Endorphins being released. Neurons firing. Okay? These are physical states that take place in the physical substance of the body. But then there's this non-physical substance. Feeling thirsty. Being happy. Being in pain. Okay? These are non-physical states that take place. This is the body. This is the mind. Now, historically, we have stories told about souls, that can go up to heaven and frolic in the allergy-free meadows after the body dies. Well, this substance dualism would agree with that kind of story because the mind is a separate thing from the body. They are two kinds of substances, and the mind is separate from the body. Does that make sense? Okay. There are many different there are many different brands of substance dualism, okay? So just like, you have a ballpoint pen and you have a bunch of different brands, you have Bics and Pilots and generic, dollar store brands. Well, substance dualism has a number of brands. So there are a number of different ways we can tell the story for substance dualism. One of those ways, and the most popular way is interactionism. The most popular brand of substance dualism is called interactionism. Interactionism says substance dualism is true. There are two kinds of substances in the world, in the universe, and the mind and body, okay, the non-physical and the physical causally interact, okay? So in other words, we have the physical body, and then we have the non-physical mind. Interactionism says there is a two-way communication between these two things. What happens in the body has effects on the mind, and what happens in the mind has effects on the body. Okay, so consider that our friend here stubs his toe on a chair. Okay, now when that happens, neurons fire, right, in the nervous system up through the legs, and they send messages to the brain, right? Well, at that moment, a message also gets sent to the mind, where the feeling of pain occurs. And as a result of that feeling of pain, a message gets sent back down to the body, where more things happen in the brain, and messages get sent back through the body, muscles expand and contract, and we jump up and say, ouch. Okay, so that's the idea here. The idea is that while the mind and body are two separate things, they're separate substances, they exist independently of each other, they interact with each other, so that what happens in the physical world has an impact on the non-physical, and what happens in the non-physical world has an impact on the physical. Interactionism is most commonly associated with René Descartes. And so interactionism is also sometimes called Cartesian Dualism. SM. Okay, Cartesian Dualism. And so as substance dualism goes, we're more likely than not to find somebody who is an interactionist rather than adopting another form of substance dualism, which all tend to be a little wackier than this one. Does that make sense?